In the quiet of my bedroom, I, Emily Martin, a 36-year-old homemaker, sat reflecting on the years I had spent in this house. The walls, once symbols of love and security, now felt like barriers trapping me in a world of deception and unspoken truths. I had married Michael, a man destined to take over his family's prestigious spa resort. His family's legacy was not just a business. It was a beacon in the hospitality industry, a name synonymous with luxury and exclusivity. Our marriage, initially a fairy tale, began to reveal its cracks when I became pregnant. Michael, always the dutiful son and aspiring business mogul, had little time or patience for the nuances of our growing family. His family's obsession with a male heir to continue the legacy loomed over us like a dark cloud. When I discovered I was pregnant, Michael's reaction was a cocktail of relief and unbridled expectation. "A boy, Emily. We need a boy," he said, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of hope and unspoken pressure. I remember feeling a knot in my stomach, not from the pregnancy, but from the weight of his words. The thought, "What if it's a girl?" haunted my nights, robbing me of my sleep and peace. Throughout my pregnancy, Michael's presence became more phantom-like. His priorities were clear: the resort and its future. My health checkups, the preparations for our child, the emotional roller coaster I was on, I faced them alone. The day we found out we were having a boy should have been a celebration. Instead, it felt like passing an exam, a relief, but not a joy. My successor, Michael had said, a statement more than an expression of affection. His infrequent presence at home was marked by criticisms and reminders of the responsibility I carried. I was more a vessel for the heir than his wife. My health deteriorated under the stress. Morning sickness was my constant companion, often leaving me weak and exhausted. Michael's family upheld a tradition of dining together, a practice Michael insisted on. But as my condition worsened, so did his patience. Dramatic, he called it, dismissing my suffering as an overreaction. The day our son was born was the day my illusion shattered completely. I lay there, exhausted yet elated, holding our baby, a beautiful boy with Michael's eyes. Michael stood there, not with warmth, but with a sense of accomplishment. He did not reach for my hand or share a tear of joy. He was there, yet he wasn't. The first time he held our son, his touch was tentative, as if he was holding his future rather than his flesh and blood. That night, as I lay in the hospital bed, cradling our son, Michael dropped the bombshell. "Emily, now that the heir is born, your role is fulfilled. I think it's best if you leave. We can't afford a freeloader." His words, cold and calculated, hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, my heart breaking not just for me, but for the innocent life I held in my arms. In that moment, I realized the painful truth. To Michael, I was never a partner, never truly his wife. I was a means to an end, a step in his plan. As I looked into the eyes of our son, I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for him. I would leave, yes, but not as a defeated, discarded wife. I would leave on my terms, with my head held high. Michael had awakened something in me, a strength I didn't know I had. I would ensure that he regretted the day he underestimated Emily Martin. The hospital room felt colder than usual that night. As I lay there, holding my newborn son, the echoes of Michael's harsh words replayed in my mind. Freeloader, he had called me, a term so alien yet so cutting. I looked down at my son, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. In his innocence, I found my resolve. I wouldn't let Michael's cruelty define our lives. The days following were a blur of paperwork, formalities, and silent tears. My parents, unaware of the full extent of my marital strife, were shocked when I showed up at their doorstep, a baby in my arms and a heart full of sorrow. "Mom, Dad, I need some time," I said, my voice barely a whisper. They didn't press for answers, for which I was grateful. That night, as I lay in my old bed, the reality of my situation began to sink in. Michael had not only abandoned me, but also his son. Days turned into weeks. I found solace in the familiarity of my childhood home, the unconditional love of my parents, and the innocent smiles of my son. Yet beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. I couldn't forget Michael's betrayal, nor could I forgive it. His words had ignited a fire within me, a desire to not just survive but to thrive, and to make him regret his callousness. I started plotting my course of revenge, each plan more meticulous than the last. My days were spent caring for my son, and my nights in strategizing. Michael, in his arrogance, had underestimated me, a mistake I intended to use to my advantage. It wasn't long before I received a frantic call from Michael. His voice, once confident and commanding, was now tinged with desperation. "Emily, please come back. I didn't realize how hard this would be," he pleaded. I listened, a cold smile playing on my lips. Michael, the heir to a luxury resort empire, was crumbling under the weight of responsibilities he had never bothered to share with me. His pleas for help, his admissions of struggle, were music to my ears. This was the man who had reduced me to nothing more than a freeloader, now unable to cope with the reality of his own life. "Michael, we are done," I said firmly, the finality in my voice unmistakable. "You made your choice, and now you must live with it." I hung up, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I had drawn the first blood in this silent war, and it was both terrifying and liberating. That night, as I held my son, I made a promise to both him and myself. We would not be victims of Michael's cruelty. We would rise from this, stronger and more resilient. Michael had started this war, but I would be the one to end it. The following weeks were a testament to the strength I didn't know I possessed. Each day with my son was a reminder of what truly mattered, and each night, as he slept peacefully, I crafted my plan to ensure Michael paid for his betrayal. His calls became more frequent, each one more desperate than the last, but they only fueled my resolve. Michael's pleas turned into bargaining, then into threats, as he slowly realized I wasn't going to relent. "You can't do this to me, Emily, I need you," he would say. But his words, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. I was no longer the woman he thought he could easily discard. I began to reach out to allies, both within and outside of Michael's influential circle. To my surprise, many were appalled by his actions, their sympathy quickly turning into support for my cause. It was as if Michael, in his arrogance, had underestimated not only me, but the relationships I had cultivated over the years. As the days passed, my plans started taking shape. I knew that to win this battle, I needed more than just emotional victories. I needed to secure my and my son's future. Legal consultations, financial planning, and quiet inquiries into Michael's business dealings became part of my daily routine. Then one evening, as I was putting my son to bed, my phone rang. It was Michael again, but this time his tone was different, broken, defeated. "Emily, I can't do this. The baby won't stop crying, and I don't know what to do. Please, come back." I felt a twinge of pity, quickly overshadowed by the memory of his harsh words and colder actions. "You wanted to be a father, Michael. Now you're learning what it means to be one," I replied, my voice steady. I could hear the frustration in his breath, the clenching of his teeth. "I'll do anything, Emily, please." "Anything?" I asked, a plan forming in my mind. "We'll see." That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that my feelings for Michael had completely evaporated, replaced by a cold indifference. The man I once loved was now nothing more than a stranger to me, a stranger I was prepared to stand against. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings. I knew it would be a battle, but I was ready to fight for my son, for our future, and for the justice we deserved. Michael had awakened a side of me I never knew existed, and now there was no turning back. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal appointments, strategic planning, and an unwavering focus on my goal. My resolve had turned into a shield, protecting both my son and me from the chaos that Michael had unleashed in our lives. The divorce proceedings were initiated, and with each step, I felt a sense of empowerment growing within me. Michael's attempts to reconcile were relentless, but they only strengthened my determination. He was no longer the confident businessman who had dismissed me so callously. He was now a man grasping at straws, trying to salvage a situation he had created. One particularly poignant moment came when I had to meet Michael for a mediation session. As I sat across from him, I saw a man broken by his own arrogance. He pleaded, bargained, and even broke down, but the image of him standing in the hospital room telling me I was no longer needed remained etched in my mind. "I'll change, Emily. I swear I didn't realize what I had until I lost it," Michael implored. But it was too late. I had seen the true Michael, and there was no going back. "You've already shown me who you are, Michael. I can't unsee that," I replied calmly. As the legal battle ensued, Michael's true nature became public. His inability to manage his personal life started affecting his professional one. The spa resort, his family's legacy, began to feel the strain of his distracted leadership. Then came the day of reckoning. The divorce was finalized, granting me full custody of our son and a substantial alimony settlement. Michael's reaction was one of disbelief and despair. He had lost not just his wife and son, but also a significant portion of his wealth. But the final blow came from his own family. Disappointed by his actions and the negative impact on their business, they decided to remove him from his position at the resort. His fall from grace was not just personal, but professional as well. Michael, once a man of influence and power, was now struggling to find his footing. He tried to reach out, to appeal to my emotions, but I had moved beyond the reach of his words. As I watched Michael's descent, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. He had underestimated me, treated me as a mere stepping stone in his path. Now, he was paying the price for his arrogance and insensitivity. With my son by my side and a newfound strength within me, I stepped into a future of possibilities. Michael's downfall was not just a victory for me. It was a lesson in resilience and the power of standing up for oneself. The closing of the courtroom door behind me felt like the final note in a long, tumultuous symphony. As I walked away, holding my son's hand, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The battle with Michael was over, and I had emerged not just victorious, but transformed. In the months that followed, I established a new life for myself and my son. We moved into a modest but cozy home, a place where laughter replaced the echoes of past arguments and tears. Each room was filled with the promise of a new beginning, a sanctuary from the storms we had weathered. My days were busy but fulfilling. I re-entered the workforce, finding a job that not only supported us but also brought me a sense of accomplishment and independence. The gap in my resume as a full-time homemaker did pose challenges, but my determination and newly found confidence helped me overcome them. As I watched my son play in our new living room, his giggles a balm to my once weary soul, I realized how much we had both grown. He was no longer the silent witness to a crumbling marriage, but a happy, thriving child, basking in the love and stability of our new life. Michael, on the other hand, became a distant memory, a chapter in my life that was closed and shelved away. The last I heard, he was doing odd jobs, a far cry from the luxurious life he was once accustomed to. His family, having disowned him, no longer provided the financial safety net he had always relied on. There were moments of guilt, fleeting shadows of what was once compassion for the man I married, but they were quickly overshadowed by the memory of his words and actions. Michael was no longer my responsibility, nor my concern. Life had taught me a harsh but valuable lesson: the importance of self-worth. I had learned to stand up for myself, to demand respect and fairness in a relationship. This journey, fraught with pain and betrayal, had led me to a place of strength and peace. My son's laughter brought me back to the present. I joined him on the floor, building a castle out of blocks, each one representing a piece of our new life. As we played, I made a silent promise to him and to myself to cherish this happiness, to nurture it, and to never let anyone take it away from us again. In this new era of our lives, we had found not just peace, but a deeper, more resilient joy. We were no longer just survivors, we were thriving, building a future filled with hope and